Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Sandeep.
Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you now. कैसा है तुम?
बस बढ़िया सर, फर्स्ट क्लास।
अपने घर में आराम कर रहा लगता है।
नहीं नहीं सर,
कहाँ रहता है? Where do you stay?
I stay in Noida.
Okay, great. So slides तो मेरी तरफ से लोड होंगी ना?
हाँ जी हाँ जी।
Yeah. So are we not starting on time?
Yeah, we are starting there, just waiting for few more people, sir.
What is this forum? ये जो forum है ये क्या है?
Sir, actually, sir, we are from Indian Association of Occupational Health, and this IAOH is a professional body which comprises of the industrial doctors, public health physicians, doctors from various industries. So they are all like working in different industries and occupational health experts.
So how often do you people meet or connect?
Sir, actually earlier, actually we have got about 3,000 members across India, and IUH is our central body, and we have branches in different states. So all state branches, they conduct some programs off and on. And IUH, they have a annual conference every year, but for last like this year we had it on virtual platform only. So
I know ये virtually चल रहा है. This has become quite a bore now.
Yeah.
Virtual thing.
So
थोड़ा सब लोग चट से गए हैं.
So but branch webinars for last 1 year, and even from Delhi we have conducted about this is the 47th. We were meeting every week almost.
So
yeah, so we were meeting every week and getting updated with the recent what the things are going on. And for last 4 months we had started another series of latest what is being there in the workplace health, occupational health across the globe. So that our Vice President Dr. Rajiv Kumar Jain, he takes that session every month. So can we start, sir? So you are not audible. You need for technical things.
Can you unmute me?
Yeah, now.
Am I unmute? Can you hear me?
You are audible, sir.
Problem ये है कि doctors are very, should I use the word technologically challenged?
It's not.
So,
they have all helping hands with them, sir.
I can't manage on my own. I really need someone else all the time. But anyway, I think that's the way.
You are audible, sir.
I'm audible. Huh?
Yeah. So
is my first slide visible?
So right now, sir, actually, let me introduce you to the.
Okay, fine. Let's start.
This is our Indian Association of Occupational Health, and this environmental and occupational health webinar we are conducting almost every week right now, and different faculties we request them to update us on different topics, recent advances. Like last week we had Dr. Shaili Mahajan from Mahajan Imaging. She is a pathologist, and she deliberated on neutralizing antibodies, which is a recent trend in the management of COVID and the diagnosis also. So likewise, we call different faculties who are expert in their field to deliberate on different topics. So today we are joined by our senior members from across India, and they will be joining. And for everyone, all participants, Dr. Rakesh Gupta, today he will be deliberating on benefits and importance of preventive health checkup. And this topic we decided why, because in the present scenario, when the COVID-19 second wave, it is badly affecting the health of the people across the globe. So this theme is more relevant for us, and we thought like on 7th of April, we had a session with Dr. Rakesh Gupta for our Indian Oil employees, and that was a great session. And we thank you very much, Dr. Rakesh Gupta, for that. And for that is the reason why we thought we should also make uh, our IUH members familiar with this issue, and we can learn more from you, although we are doing day in and day out preventive health checkups in our respective organizations, because occupational health is basically preventive health only. So this is in continuation of the World Health Day celebration, which was theme was building a fairer, healthier world. So, as you rightly told on that day, that preventive health is a key part of this making a building a fairer, healthier world. So, for introduction to everyone, Dr. Rakesh Gupta is a senior consultant in the Department of Internal Medicine in Indraprastha Apollo Hospital, New Delhi, and he is an alumnus of University of Medical Sciences, Delhi. And Dr. Gupta has worked in different capacities at Safdarjung Hospital, at St. Stephen's Hospital, Rajiv Gandhi Cancer Hospital before joining Apollo Hospital in 2000. His special fields of interest are diabetology, chest and critical care, and he has spoken extensively at various forums in India and abroad, and is a keen participant at various symposia as well. So, Dr. Rakesh Gupta sir also happens to be my senior from my SN Medical College, Agra, and he recognized me by face, and I also recognize you very well, sir. Although after a long time we have seen each other, but still um, we want to learn from your expertise, and our colleagues also want to know more about the different aspects of the executive health checkup, preventive health checkup, how it is important, how it is relevant. Although we all know many things, but still, as you rightly said, after preventive examination, that follow-up is very important and that consultation with the doctor is very important. So, and after that, counseling is very important, follow-up is very important. So, with this, sir, I request you to start your deliberation. So you can share your screen and start the presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sandeep. I think it is, thanks for your kind words of introduction. The fact that we recognized each other after so many years means that we are not yet so old. We are still, we still can recognize each other. And I think in today's day and age, I think it's worth thanking things for the way the things are. It was a nice session the other day. I enjoyed talking to your company, and it was great fun. Today, the topic is you picked up the same topic. So there might be some of my anecdotes or some of my points which might be repetition for some people. But I think it's worth, since the forum is different. So I think it's worth doing what I'm best at. I'll talk more extempore rather than the slides. I think slides are helpful, but I think personal experiences are quite a lot. I'm in Indraprastha Apollo Hospitals since 2000, which means almost for 21 years I'm there in the Department of Internal Medicine. And I think all over the world, the focus has become shifted to more and more of preventive medicine and preventive checkups, preventive immunization, and preventive kind of scenarios. And prevention is better than cure is an old adage which we probably are familiar with since childhood. And a stitch in time saves nine, and early bird catches the worm. These are all phrases which have been there for donkey years. So I think they all come together in health checkup programs nowadays when we come for this. And the other day also I started with an anecdote, and I must tell you this incident really, and I think it will be of interest to everybody. And since I'm talking only to doctors today, that a few years ago, a friend of mine came from US, a very dear friend of mine working in Boston. And I asked him really that what kind of patients are you seeing in medicine now? He did MD here, and then he went to England, and from there he went to US. And I said I was interested in knowing what kind of patients is he. He said, "मैं तो सिर्फ preventive patient देखता हूँ." So I said, "What do you mean by preventive patients?" He said, "I'm paid by the insurance companies, I'm paid by the government, basically to kind of keep my community patients healthy so that they don't get admitted to the hospital. So that the ICU charges and hospital admission charges are so high that insurance companies are ready to pay a small price for keeping all the clients in a good shape so that they don't get admitted to the hospital. So he said, all my patients are diabetic, hypertensive, cholesterol, or whatever. And I keep calling them every month, 2 months, 3 months. I keep an eagle eye on that. I've got a base of around 2,000 odd patients, and I have to keep them all healthy so that they don't get admitted. So this was a thought which probably he probably has been there in America for some time. And I think in India also slowly, gradually, this prevention and preventive health checkups have been coming. Now, honestly speaking, if you look at our backgrounds, 25 years ago, there was no thought about prevention. Nobody got a preventive health checkup done, and there were hardly any preventive health checkups per se. And then probably gradually, once corporate hospitals came in, private hospitals came in, focus came in, a little bit of money came in, insurance companies came in, these prevention and preventive health checkups has become a norm. And I think all big companies, and I think you people are all doctors in various companies, they all do these preventive health checkups for their employees. It's a part of occupational health. And I must say that it has paid dividends over a period of time, because so many of our patients are picked up at the early stage. You can nip things in the bud and things are better per se. So I think I'll start with this, and for next 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I'll talk about preventive health checkups. In our hospital, we've got a very robust preventive health checkup program, and I see a fair amount of preventive health checkup patients every day. We see them on the first day. Complete checkup is done. We've got at least 25, 30 packages for various kind of patients. We got heart checkups. We got a whole body checkups. We got checkups even meant for women specifically. We have specifically checkups for women, which include pap smear and mammography only. We have children checkups. So we've got various kind of checkups. And I think quite a few of us are familiar with those checkups. So I'm going to talk 20, 25 minutes on health checkups, and then probably it'll be nice to everybody give their opinion, and we can have a discussion about where can we head from here and what we can do. And I'll put my viewpoint forward. So this is the kind of pamphlet which we have in our hospital, which says that health checkup programs are there in Apollo hospitals. And as you can see, it contains a lot of checkups, really. Like such an example. This is a very popular program in a hospital. It's called Apollo Pro Health Regal. And it includes, you can see a fair amount of tests. And as a doctor, if you're interested in seeing what kind of tests you're doing, then number one is blood test, of course, which includes hemogram, fasting sugar, HbA1c. Honestly, we don't do a postprandial sugar, because postprandial sugar is actually not the right approach in our hospital packages which we do. The reason being that technically speaking, when you do a fasting postprandial for a patient for diabetes, in those 2 hours in between, the patient should be comfortable and lying, and he should not be exercising too much. But we have to utilize the time for which the patient is in the hospital. So if he's in the hospital for a package of 3 hours, 4 hours, we'll tell him to go to the ultrasound room. He'll tell him to go to a TMT. He'll do an echo. He'll go upstairs, downstairs. He'll go to different departments. So, he's expending energy. He's empty stomach also. And then probably he's had a little bit of food. So that postprandial report which comes is not truly the right report, which should help us guide up in a diabetic patient. So as a part of the general package, we don't have a postprandial report, but if a patient specifically asks for it, then he gets it. HbA1c has emerged as a very important test. We know that. Lipid profiles, we know kidney function tests, liver function tests, electrolytes, HbSAg, because I think a lot of unknown Australia antigen positives and hepatitis B patients we see. Calcium, phosphorus, thyroid stimulating hormone, PSA for men, vitamin D3 and B12. I think these are two very important tests which have emerged over the last 15, 20 years. And almost 85 to 90% of our population is deficient. But what I feel fascinating about these vitamin D and B12 is that it can be fixed very well. Whether you want to give an injection, whether you want to give a syrup, tablet, sachet, whatever, it can be fixed very well. And quite a few patients who have been complaining of nagging pains and aches, they show improvement if you kind of streamline that. B12, of course, is a important component of neuropathy. So that is extremely important to see in patients. Anti-HCV for hepatitis C, TROP-I. This TROP-I is a little bit of a, should I use a word question mark test? Because highly sensitive TROP-I came as a marker which for heart, but it's not really stood the test of time. And maybe you have to interpret in your own way, but it's a part of the package. Stool for occult blood, urine routine microscopic, stool routine microscopic, ECG, X-ray chest, ultrasound whole abdomen. These are all important tests. Pulmonary function test, echocardiograph, TMT, which is also known as cardiac stress analysis. Definitely mammography and ultrasound breast for women, both are done for women. And below 35 years of age, we do only ultrasound breast. If it's above 35 years of age, we do ultrasound and mammography. These are international guidelines. Eye consultant, a ENT consultant, a dental consultant, a surgical consultant, a gynecology consultant for ladies, they all come into view. Ultimately, internists are the one who see the patient twice. They see the patients on the first day, they see the patient on the last day, they make a complete summary. Cardiologist is also consulted. And there is a dietary and lifestyle counseling also. Apart from that, there is a yoga, meditation, physiotherapy, and many other small things which are there, and patient gets a complete thing, etc. Now, I know that a lot of companies send their patients to a hospital, and I have seen a fair amount of patients who kind of undergo a checkup, and then some of them do not land up for a review, because quite a few are under the impression that we have only come for the checkup. We take the reports and we go back to our parent company, and there the doctor is there and he will have a look at us. I would encourage everybody to take an opinion in the hospital also. It's a part of the package. It's just that patient has to come twice. But sometimes you can share some experience of yours, and you can guide a patient in a better way sometimes, because you're working in a tertiary level hospital in which you have patients coming from all stratas. So I think you should encourage all the patients, since it's not costing anything to the patient and to the company, and it's a part of the package only. So I think patients should be encouraged to have a follow-up and then take on from there. First question which comes to the mind, everybody's mind, is, are these tests really required? The truth is that people are generally shy and scared. Quite a few times patients say that, कुछ ना कुछ निकल आए, अभी तो हम ठीक हैं, कुछ ना कुछ निकल आएगा, हम फंस जाएंगे, and people, companies. So this is the kind of thought process which some people have. But honestly speaking, a lot of people have started believing in health checkups as compared to before. Cost be involved hota hai. If a company is not paying for it, paying from the pocket is not all that easy. All the people have become more and more aware of it, and some people feel it's futile. जब प्रॉब्लम होगा तब देख लेंगे, अभी प्रॉब्लम नहीं है तो बिना मतलब कि हम टेस्ट क्यों करें? But we know that prevention is better and stitch in time saves 9. So I think we should encourage them. Ultimately, these tests are for whom? I think it's if you see from a general population perspective, it is meant for all patients above the 40s for sure. But even in younger people, you can get it done if there's a strong family history. For example, if you have a family history of breast cancer, then it's extremely important that the child also should get it done, or a mother should get it done. The other day also, I gave an example of a patient of mine who's a very rich patient, and her daughter had a cancer breast in England, and she flew in for a surgery. And when she came back, I asked her, "Did you get a checkup done of cancer?" She said, "No." So she just got a routine checkup done, in a way, a package, and she also turned out to be breast cancer. Just opposite way. Generally speaking, it's mother positive, and then you look at child. In this case, the child was positive, and then we looked at mother. And then she was also operated, and this was in 2007-8, and both are doing fine as of now. So that one another example of such kind of things we picked up. Heart diseases, diabetes, these all are family history oriented things. Corporate groups have their own principles above 35, 45, whatever your principles are. But I think our general population is kept up per se. And definitely people who have chronic problems should get for example, diabetes or a coronary artery disease or obesity or cancer patients. They must get a checkup done every year. And quite often, quite a few of my patients, they come in every 6 months and they get a checkup on their own and then come to me. The doctor, we have got this checkup done. Now what do you say? Nowadays, another trend which has happened, especially in private circles, is that in every colony, in every place, lot of these labs, they do checkups, and they are fairly economical. For $2,000 or $3,000, almost 90 tests, almost all the tests which you require are done. So if I tell my patient that please come to me after 3 months with a fasting PPH, HbA1c, more likely that he'll come with 90 tests, which includes all the tests which we not even asked for. कि वो सैंपल लेने आया था, उसने बोला ये पैकेज करा लो, ये सस्ता पड़ता है, एंड उसमें करा लो, एंड हमने करा. Of course, it's a headache for us as a clinician to go through all the tests which we have not asked for. But from the patient perspective, he thinks that he's got a checkup done, which is not a bad idea, and sometimes you can pick up things for yourself. So what does it mean for a company, people? We know that if you do a regular checkup and you look by all doctors per se, it actually means reduced sickness and absences, because you picked up things at the early stages sometime. There is a more productive staff, there is increased output production, and ultimately comes into greater profitability for the company. But it's globally becoming a norm now, and it's across all centers. tertiary center, referral centers, primary level center, individual practice. I think all across health checkups have become a norm per se, and I think it's being done all over. And I think last couple of years, even in private and government hospitals, I know for sure in Safdarjung and AIIMS, they have started doing these health checkup programs. So what does a standard package entail? History, examination, blood test, urine stool examination, X-ray chest. We looked at all those values which we just looked at. And it also includes a gynae and a rectal checkup, depending on a lady or a man. And what do you look for in the history? We look for all the whether the patient is a known patient of heart disease, hypertension, asthma, gastritis, urinary problems, headaches. I think headache is very important sometimes to pick up blood pressure or migraine, etc., or eye problems, body ache, and joint pains. Also, arthralgia, I think, is important. And quite a few patients sometimes have real deficiencies of vitamins or may even have rheumatism to be picked up at the early stages. But another thing which I would encourage all of our colleagues is to basically look for these things which are not generally asked for or told. I think anxiety, depression is a very integral part of the kind of plan nowadays. I don't think so. There are very many people who don't have either of the two. It's either or, but anxiety, depression, psychological aspects should be tackled. I think it's a job of a clinician who's seeing a patient on a checkup to ask for these questions. Erectile dysfunction, I think, is an extremely important part, especially in our diabetic patients. And you know that it can autonomic dysfunctions and erectile dysfunction. And I can tell you one thing, that if you ask about erectile dysfunction to a diabetic, almost 70 to 80% will say, yes, we do have it. And they'll be pleasantly surprised that someone posts on this question, because nobody asks these questions, generally speaking. Nobody has time also, probably. But if he feels that you have asked this question, he will be your fan for life, because he feels that someone asked one question which I didn't know probably was related to diabetes also. Snoring, I think sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea, sleep medicine has emerged as a special branch over the last 20-25 years. And pehle wo ghode bech ke so raha hota hai, that used to be a point, but now we know that it's a problem. So snoring is something which needs to be tackled by everybody. And there is a lot of options which we have, including surgeries or BiPAP machine or sleep study, etc. And daytime sleepiness from an occupational health point of view, I think is an extremely important problem. Quite a few of patients who are obese, and especially I think in Indian context, especially diabetes and kind of food which most of our people eat, obesity is quite a problem. Almost 50 to 60% population is obese. And daytime sleepiness, and it can be disastrous, especially if you're at the time of work, if you kind of fall, and if you're working with machines and all, you may have a disaster on your hands. So I think these problems like snoring, daytime sleepiness should be asked for, and I think they should be picked up at early stages, and one should try to fix them, because it's an integral part of looking at the well-being of a patient. Past history of tuberculosis, jaundice, surgery, these all are important because they do give us clue about infectivity. We also gives us a view about any kind of transmission of any kind of communicable disease. Surgery, of course, you should know where you stand depending on what the history is. Smoking, alcohol, tobacco, it takes us to Hutchison days when we used to look at all the basic histories and all. But I think it's important all our life to ask such kind of questions. And when you examine a patient, then you're looking for weight issues and weight, height issues, whether the patient is good or not. And quite a few times we are challenged to ask, what patient asks me, "Acha, doctor, mera weight kitna hona chahiye?" So I think a Broca's index is a very simple thing to know by, that a normal person's weight should be height in centimeters minus 100, multiplied by 0.9 plus minus 2 standard deviations. So for example, if a patient is height is 170 centimeters, his weight should be 70 multiplied by 0.9, which makes it around basically between 65 and 75, plus minus 2 standard deviations. I think that is what we should. In fact, when I write a prescription for a patient, I always write down that this is your weight and this is what the desirable weight is. So patient should be given targets also, that this is what you're going to look for. Not only sugar targets or cholesterol targets, even your weight targets, your walking stepwise target, etc. Obesity, pedal edema, I think is something we look for. Lymph nodes, I think on clinical examination for sure, especially neck nodes. And you examine the usual chest, heart, lungs, abdomen, CNS examination, etc. So all the standard tests which we talked about previously. And what do you look for in a standard test? You look in a hemogram, look for the hemoglobin anemia part. Platelet count sometimes does give you indication regarding a viral infection or not. If a patient's platelet count is low, then maybe a viral infection. And in the current COVID scenario, Sometimes platelet count can be on the lower side. Peripheral smear also gives you the type of anemia. I think LFT is very important. Quite a few patients have fatty liver, and fatty liver is something which people don't understand. What is it? Is it effect of? So what I tell in a simple, lucid language is that if you have a fatty liver, then it means you have some problem which is affecting your liver. So if you have a fatty liver, either you're fat, you're obese, or you have a increased insulin resistance, like in diabetes, or probably you got a high cholesterol, dyslipidemia, or probably you drink. So these four common reasons are something which we have, which are familiar with, and we kind of can rub it down the patient that this is your liver enzyme which is deranged, you have fatty liver, this is because of any of these issues, and you need to tackle them so that it can decrease. There is no treatment for fatty liver per se, but there is a treatment for what is causing fatty liver. So if you kind of control your weight, or you control your sugars, or you control your cholesterols, or you control your drinking, then maybe the fatty liver can be addressed. KFTs are important quite a few times, especially in diabetics. You can have a deranged KFTs, and I must say that amongst all KFTs, my favorite test is urine for microalbuminuria, because blood urea serum creatinine increases later on. But if a urine for microalbuminuria is high, then patient has already entered the stage of nephropathy. That's what it means basically. And I think that is the way to go about it. And people generally in India or all over the world, they don't kind of respond very easily till the time there is a crisis, or there is a time they understand there is something grossly wrong. So I think if a urine for microalbuminuria is positive, then it can be told to the patient that you're suffering from nephropathy and your sugars need to be very well controlled and you need to be good. Of course, Google is there, and a patient will go back and his son will sit down and he will show him on, okay, this is what microalbuminuria, which is good in a way. When they read that, they'll understand that it has significance of different nature. And maybe it will drill into his head that he needs to control his sugars, amongst other things. So I think urine for microalbuminuria in a preliminary level is a very important test, which I get done on all my patients. Uric acid, electrolytes, etc. And lipid profile, again, very important. LDL cholesterol, triglycerides, homocysteine, HDL, these all are important components we have, which we can help in evaluating in patients. The sugars, fasting, postprandial, both are equally important. HbA1c is important. Rather, in the beginning, the patient's postprandial rises first, fasting rises later on. But HbA1c gives you a lot of information. Like I was talking about urine for microalbuminuria, which tells you microscopic level involvement of the kidneys, is an extremely important test. And fortunately, it's a cheap test and it's available everywhere. So I think we should kind of incorporate in our panel most of the times. Thyroid function test, I think, is another thing. Thyroid used to be a very difficult test to get by, and used to be very expensive, but now it's become so common. The kits are so cheap now that I think it's a part of almost every package which we undergo. Urine examination, stool examination, ultrasound abdomen, X-ray chest, ECG. Yeah, these are standard tests. And these are some new kids on the block, some tests which we have been doing over the last 20 years now. Vitamin D levels, vitamin B12 levels, unfortunately, they're slightly expensive. But if you do a package and all, then the rate can come down. Rate is one aspect, but it's useful for the patient because these are fixable problems. PSA gives you a rough hint about cancer of prostate. Urine for microalbuminuria, we talked about. HIV, I think, is another occupational health problem or generally problem, not so much robust in our country now, but there was a time when HIV used to be very rampant. So now it's probably taken a back seat, and with all these newer and newer kids like Corona, etc., I think this is no longer a new kid, it's an old kid now. And hepatitis B and hepatitis C are quite common things. A lot of changes have happened in the treatment for both. Hepatitis B is very easily treatable. Vaccine is another thing which we must encourage for hepatitis B. And now, as you know, we have medicines to take to eradicate hepatitis C altogether. So I think eradication of hepatitis C is one of the major, should I say, progress which has been made in hepatology. And I think it is imperative that we must pick it up in a good stage so that we can help the patient per se. Apart from that, pulmonary function test, treadmill test, echocardiography, mammography, ultrasound breast, mammography, I recommend to every lady above the age of 35 every 2 years. And pap smear definitely is encouraged to have it every year. Rectal examination is another thing which is kind of missed. You know, as a part of our packages in which men are involved, the surgeon comes into the picture, and surgeons do kind of examine the rectal examination. But quite a few times, many of our lady patients are shy of talking about rectum and are shy of talking about, telling about fissure, fistula, or hemorrhoids. And sometimes they feel that gynecologists will take care of that. And gynecologist colleague of ours
are not a proficient to look at the rectal area. So I think I do make it a point to ask my lady patients also that have they had any bleeding through the rectal area, or do they have any possibility that they may have had any painful defecation in which there might be fissure, fistula, or piles. In which today I had a patient, I must tell you, today I had a patient who's my regular patient, and she said that I have a little bit pain while passing stools. So I said, well, I'm afraid you need to be seen by the surgeon. She was very reluctant to go to the surgeon, thinking that he'll undergo surgery. But we have a lady surgeon in a hospital. I encouraged her to go there, and she turned out to have fissure. So according to the surgeon, she'll just need some cream and jelly and some laxative, and probably her fissure can nipped in the bud. So I think rectal examination is another examination which should be a part of a package, especially more focused on ladies also. Bone densitometry again has lost its charm because it's a little bit expensive test, and osteoporosis is something which has taken a backseat in light of vitamin D deficiency. If you fix up vitamin D, then most of the time patients' bones are taken care of. So bone densitometry in select cases, and carotid Doppler is something which we also do, especially in patients who have giddiness or drowsiness, or they have a suspicion of TIA or transient ischemic attacks. Eye examination, our eye colleagues kind of look at the retinal examination required in diabetic patients all the time, every year. ENT people also can pick up some, and especially in occupational health point of view, I think if you can pick up audible audio things in the early stages, then you can help the patients. And dental is also another perennial problem which most of us have. But there are a lot of tests which are not really required. Now, honestly speaking, a lot of companies have the packages set with different hospitals, and it's been there from very beginning. I've been seeing patients for almost 21 years, like I said, and I see a lot of tests which are superfluous. For example, there are some companies which have a blood group. Now, you tell me, if a patient comes for a test every year, your blood group will never change. Anyway, blood group will cost probably not so much money, but at least it costs X amount of money. So what is the point in doing a blood group every year? You do blood group every year doesn't make sense. So I think that money, which is a part of the package, can be utilized better for something else. I think doing a calcium level is also useless, because generally speaking, what you're looking for is calcium in the bones. But when you do a calcium test, it's basically a calcium level which is there in the blood, which is a fallacious kind of calcium. So I'd rather have a vitamin D test done rather than a calcium levels done. Phosphorus is totally useless because calcium is inversely proportional to phosphorus. If your calcium level is high, your phosphorus level will be low. But phosphorus in itself doesn't really help us in any way, except in very, very select cases. And also the subgroup of all the hemoglobin parameters like PCV, MCHC, MCH, MCV. In specific cases, it's useful. But by and large, it doesn't really give us much information. Cholesterol HDL ratio, again, not very, very effective, and albumin globulin. So there are some tests which are really not superfluous, which are not really required, and patients are done. And I must say, I've even seen in some packages which different companies have, we even have tests for syphilis and STDs, and that's how rare it is to have syphilis nowadays. I haven't for myself, even though I'm in a hospital for last 25 years, I haven't seen a patient of syphilis per se. So I think no longer are such certain conditions existing in the community, which probably were at one time. So I think my suggestion to all company people is that I think every 2 years or 3 years, packages should be renegotiated. I think the company people, I'm sure you're doing it. And you should sit down and make packages which are more useful for the company, your company profile and your population per se. And I think the doctor's view, doctor's opinion, and all comes into view, and you have to decide accordingly. But I think they should be changed from time to time, because new tests come in and new kind of guidelines come in, and sometimes we should move with the times rather than having packages which are set in stone, which are kind of not changed for last 20 years or so. So when a patient has to come to my hospital for a standard checkup, he would be empty stomach with at least 8 hours of fasting. It would be overnight fasting. Water is allowed. He can get urine stool from home. And this is like a typical, kind of, should I use the word, a typical snapshot of the kind of packages we have. Say all these tests which are there in the packages. You can see the LFTs, you can see the calciums, you have say the bilirubins, HbA1c, thyroid, and there's a whole body check, which is a big package, CBC, and all kind of tests are done in this case. There's a urine examination, and which you can see it gives us a lot of help. There's a stool examination, there's an ultrasound examination, and ultrasound is useful anyway. And there's a ECG, which gives us a lot of clues. And we have a treadmill test, which is printed report like this. We also have this PFT, lung function test, in which we kind of see the different things. And then we come to a topic called lifestyle diseases. I think we have a lifestyle counselor in our hospital in a package. So they kind of sit down with the patient and talk about that. And we know that the basis of chronic diseases is lifestyle changes. So I think alcohol, smoking, मैं कितना अल्कोहल पी सकता हूँ डॉक्टर, आपको डायबिटीज है, मैं अल्कोहल पी भी सकता हूँ कि नहीं पी सकता. There are guidelines. You can have up to 180 ml or 200 ml in a week, and you have a chat with the patient. Smoking should be out. How much exercise? How do you define exercise? कितना एक्सरसाइज मैं करूँ, क्या कहते हैं, मैं इतना योगा करता हूँ. One of the very major thing in every patient is मैं योगा करता हूँ. So it's almost like he's gained heaven क्योंकि वो योगा करता है इसलिए इसको कुछ नहीं होता. But when you ask a little bit probing questions, क्या योगा करते हो? Just in front of TV, 5 minutes, just twisting their hand. मैं लंबा सांस लेता हूँ, मैं ये पीता हूँ, मैं. So all I'm saying is there are people who misuse the words. They try to shy away from reality. And if I think people lifestyle changes is something which has to be incorporated in a kind of continuous process, and we keep on telling our patients all the time about lifestyle. I think if a patient of diabetes comes to me after, say, for last 20 years, has been coming to me, so I think for out of 20 minutes of consultation, 15 minutes would be about the lifestyle and exercise and this and that, and just 5 would be on medicines and if we need to change anything per se. Diet, I think, has emerged as a very important component. I think in the last 20 years, there's been so much focus on diet that so many dietary supplements have emerged, so many dietitians have emerged, so many kind of diets have emerged, into intermittent diet, blood group diet, General Motors diet. There are all kind of diets which people have, and some are effective, some are not effective also. But awareness about diet has definitely increased. So I think diabetic diet, hepatic diet, uremic diet, so many diets we have in the hospital, 1400 kilocalories diet, 1200 kilocalories diet. There has been recent study which was published in BMJ which said that if you're early diabetic and you kind of have a diet of 800 calories, you can even reverse diabetes. So I think these kind of things are of interest to public. And I think that is why dietary is a very important component which all are looking for. I'm fairly passionate about adult vaccination. Now everybody is talking about vaccine. Everybody is more interested in looking at कि मैं Covaxin लूँ, कि मैं वो Covishield लूँ, कि मेरे को कोई problem तो नहीं होगा. But you know that vaccinations have been there for years, and these are the kind of adult vaccines which are recommended per se across world bodies. I think in India, adult vaccination is not taken seriously. I think even by organizations, it's not taken seriously. I think it must be made compulsory, and if not optional. And vaccines do not cost so much. I think most of the vaccines are in the price of around 1,500, 2,000, which is not that much in today's world. And of course, COVID vaccine is almost free or negligible cost. But I'm just saying generally, we do not go on a preventive aspect of life, which is vaccination. We are fond of vaccination in children because that's a part of universal program of immunization. And so many diseases have been eradicated, but in adults, we don't. So I personally recommend 4 vaccines to all my patients. I definitely recommend an influenza vaccine every year. It comes in the month of September, October, and I think it should be taken in every patient above the age of 50. It should definitely be taken in vulnerable people like diabetic and bronchial asthma or COPD or history of tuberculosis, in younger people also, and it should be taken every year throughout life. DPT booster is also required every 10 years, and the one advantage it has is that it gives you a shot of tetanus, which gives you protection for 10 years. You know that if a person kind of injures themselves, then you give a tetanus shot, which is valid for 6 months. But if you give a DPT, Tdap kind of booster, then it's valid for 10 years. So I think if you're looking at occupational health, giving a Tdap makes much more sense rather than giving a tetanus vaccine from time to time. Varicella is chickenpox, which I think most of the people have taken in their childhood. Human papilloma virus more in young people. Zoster virus is not. It came to India, then it went off. It's expensive. It was around 8,000, 9,000. So it didn't make much sense. But the second vaccine which I offer to all my patients is pneumococcal vaccine. Pneumovax 23 or Prevenar 13. These are 2 vaccines, which is a PCV 13 variant or PPSV. And generally, I recommend at any age, and then 1 booster at the age of 65. So these are not taken too many times, just 2 vaccines, and it gives you a protection for life. Meningococcal only to select population, and definitely hepatitis B vaccine and hepatitis A vaccine should be given to people. We have this combination called Twinrix, in which you give 3 shots. It's valid for life, 0, 1, 6. and that's good enough. And they're not very expensive also. So I think adult vaccination is something which should be emphasized, and as clinicians, we must make it a point to put it across to our patients. So I think every doctors have their own checklist, and I think every organization has their own checklist. But if someone asks me, doctor, what are the minimum medicines? What are the minimum tests you require? I would say these are the checklists which I would go for. We need a hemoglobin, we need a TLC, we need a creatinine for sure. You don't need blood urea creatinine both unless in some circumstances. A fasting sugar can be done, HbA1c, lipid profile, TSH, vitamin D3, urine examination, ECG, X-ray, chest, ultrasound. This is the cheapest kind of combination or the minimum, which I think can give us a good, fair kind of sprinkling of the indication of the health of a patient. Remember, no health checkup is absolute. It's not that if you do a health checkup, patient is free for life. I've had a patient who probably got a health checkup in the month of September, and in the month of October, he contracted a brain tumor. And they came back to me and they said, Doctor, aapne to checkup karaya tha, why? I said, you can't do a CT scan in a patient. If a patient did tell me that he would have had a headache or something, I would have done a CT scan of the brain. But you can't do CT in all patients. And one of the major things which a lot of patients ask me is, Doctor, ये सारे test cancer को cover कर लेंगे क्या? Now, everybody is scared of cancer, but the truth is you can't keep on doing all kind of tests. So there has to be cost effectiveness also. Now, PET scan probably can do a screening for cancer, but PET scan costs a fair amount of money as of today. But I think over a period of time, PET scan will become cheaper when the mass base increases. And I won't be surprised that within 2-3 years, PET scan becomes a part of package for most of the patients because it's a screening test. And it's something which probably we have to look at. In America, for example, where it's very common to have colon cancers, every patient who undergoes a health checkup above the age of 50, colonoscopy is done on a routine basis. In India, colonoscopy is not done on a routine basis. In US, every patient in a routine way undergoes a colonoscopy. And in Japan, for example, carcinoma stomach is very common. So all patients undergo a endoscopy in those. So sometimes there are country-specific and community-specific problems also, which makes you think and make your own checklist. So I think I've taken all the time which was given to me. So to summarize, I would say preventive health checkup is the order of the day. It may help in identifying undiagnosed conditions. That's a key point. It streamlines practice also. You do a health checkup, you have a baseline test. So suppose 3 months later or 6 months later, patient has a problem. You might ask, "Acha, aapne pichla test kab karaya tha?" Then the health checkup will tell you that, okay, fine, 6 months ago, these were the tests you done. So it does streamline your practice and you can compare before and after. And it turns out to be economical for the people. If I get individual tests done in my hospital, they cost X amount. But if I undergo a package, it's much cheaper because, people are subsidized and things are just kept under control. So it does boil down to economical for the people also. It gives patient a better health perspective. People have become more and more conscious of their health nowadays. So it does give patient a better health perspective per se. And since it detects problems early, so better management and outcomes can be taken care of. And it also gives you a chance of reviewing the vaccination and the lifestyle changes, which is something which people are having more and more interest on. People have now become a little bit more jagrook about vaccinations and all. So I think it's time for us to kind of emphasize that what has been given over a period of time should be emphasized. And COVID vaccine is, of course, one thing, but the other vaccine also should be given simultaneously to most of our patients. So ultimately, I would say think global, but act local, because look at your local perspectives, look at your local community, look at your local occupational health programs, and see where what benefits, what negative, positive you want. Make your own packages, but ultimately it's one life, one chance. So why take chances when there is a way in which probably you can pick up things at an early stage? This was a joke which I had put in many years ago in our old slide. If you can't afford a doctor, go to the airport because you'll get a free X-ray and a breast examination. And if you mention Al Qaeda, then you can get a free colonoscopy also. So that was the whole joke, but things have changed so much. In fact, so much has changed over the last few years that no more old jokes stand around today. So thank you everybody for your patient hearing. And I think now probably I'll hand over the mic to Dr. Sharma to kind of open the discussion to the public. And anybody wants to make their tips or they want to say anything much, I'll be very happy to talk about. I didn't talk too much about the COVID today because I think health checkup, occupational health is a thing. But if anybody wants to ask me questions regarding COVID also, I'll be very happy to answer. I'm actively involved with COVID patients and I'm a part of the COVID unit in the hospital. So I think since that's a question of the day, I would be very happy to take it. Or if you invite me some other time for COVID, I'll be very happy to come in person. Over to you, Dr. Sharma.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rakesh Gupta, sir. And this was a very great deliberation on the benefits and the importance of the preventive health checkup. And it rightly coincides with the World Health Day celebration, sir, which aims at building a fairer, healthier world. So that is the reason why we have chosen this topic of the preventive health checkup. And yes, as you have rightly said, that it has become a global trend now that we need to be more focused on our health rather than getting disease and getting some curative treatment. And it is our responsibility as occupational physician and industrial physician to keep our employees in good health. That is the thing for which we are paid, as you rightly said. And it will definitely help us to make our point in our respective organization. And as you are told that we have to rationalize our packages as per the requirement. And all organizations to which we all belong, and as I told you on that day, in Indian Oil also we have finalized our packages some few months back on only. And at time to time we should check our packages, and we should omit the tests which are not required, and some new tests which are there in the market, we should better go for them rather than spending money for other tests. And we need to create more awareness among our employees also. Now
Can I make a point? Sorry.
yeah,
Since quite a few packages come to our hospital also, I think we'll be more than happy to put our point forward also. If any organization wishes to discuss with us, sitting in a center where probably we are coming from various organizations, sometimes discussion with the doctors involved with health checkup programs in hospitals can also give a little bit of different perspective. Of course, company has their own compulsions and budgets and all that, but sometimes it might be a good idea to communicate with us also, who are working in the hospital in the packages, to kind of give you some input or insight into what would be better for the patients.
Yeah. So in addition to the health checkup packages for our regular employees, we are also doing targeted health checkups for the employees who are exposed to hazardous things like hazardous gases or exposed to noise. And in this way, like whatever the hazardous exposure is, accordingly we include those tests like pulmonary function tests, as you rightly advise, and audiometry and eye examination. Or so as per the target group, we focus more on these particular tests. So with this, sir, I would like to open the floor to all our senior members. And Dr. Rajiv Kumar Jain is there, sir. He is our vice president, and he from Delhi branch, and he is a senior specialist from Indian Railways, sir. He is Northern Railways. Dr. Rajiv Jain, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sandeep, for giving me an opportunity to interact at this juncture. I must appreciate Dr. Rakesh Gupta, who has very simply and very clearly given a blueprint for health checkup and the kind of components that are involved in Apollo Hospital. There are three issues which come to my mind. In the context of occupational health, we in occupational health are focused on risk-based occupational health checkups. Now, unless risk-based checkup is done, one would not get the value for money. What do I mean by saying risk-based health checkups? What I want to indicate is that entire occupational health is based on, even the standards of occupational health are based on risk-based assessment, whether it's safety or health or disease. Because it's unless we assess the risk, we will not be able to give real focus to the highest risk and less focus to the lower risk. So in that context, what I want to highlight, and I don't know whether Apollo has built this paradigm or matrix while making this proposition for organizations, which are important, I think. What I want to say is that half a day should be only spent on assessment of risk in the context of individuals, not only lifestyle, work but also his workspace. And the second half or the first half is for this assessment, second half for non-invasive diagnostic test. The history, assessment of risk, and non-invasive diagnostic test should precede the invasive diagnostics test. But what I'm seeing I mean is take a blood sample and then assess, take the report, and then go to different specialties, and then actually go to the next mile where we are focusing on certain diseases of our interest. Which should be the other way around. The health of the individual is in the context of his environment. His environment is home and office. So in that context, I want to say, I want to get your reaction on this. The third issue which I want to raise with you, this is the components that you told, are they specific to Indraprastha Apollo with Delhi, or they are common to entire Apollo group as such, whether one is in Chennai or Bangalore or Hyderabad, would the same package would be there?
Okay.
So these are the two issues.
Thank you, Dr. Rajiv. Let me answer these three questions. And in fact, today we had a meeting regarding health checkup programs in a hospital with the director. And I'm happy to tell you that the packages which are there in the hospital are standard in all Apollos all over India. The same kind of packages are there in Chennai, the same kind of packages are in Kolkata, the same packages are in Raipur, the same packages are in Delhi, by and large. So 90% of the packages are same. 10% there are a few other packages which are more unit specific, like they might be more in Northern India, more than Southern India. So there are some packages like that, those also. But primarily all the packages, generally the standard packages like basic health checkup or cardiac checkup or whole body checkup, they all are all over in all Apollos. That's number one. Second, I agree with your point that risk assessment is extremely important thing. And I think it is an integral part of kind of putting the packages together. But like I said, I would look at it in two ways. 80% of individuals are individuals, whether they're working in an office or they're working with factory or etc. So diabetes, hypertension, chronic diseases, these all remain standard with them. 20% would be more risk oriented according to where they're working. For example, like I was pointing out an example, suppose you are a obese person and you have obstructive sleep apnea. Now, obstructive sleep apnea is quite likely that he won't have a good sleep in the night. In the morning, he would be drooling from mouth. He would not be very active, and it's quite likely that he might just doze off for a moment, next to a machine, or he might do that. And like I said, it could be disastrous. So it depends on organization which may have a machine or kind of manufacturing going on. Whereas the efficiency of a person might be very poor if he's in a clerical staff, but he may not have any life and death kind of risk. So the risk assessment part has to come from the doctors who are working in organizations. They are the ones who can guide us better that what risk is their people have and what do they like. So I think 80% of the packages are standard ones which kind of go across all population, and 10-20% the tweak can happen or we can ask for specific tests. So for example, although I'm talking about this obstructive sleep apnea, but you know that the sleep study if you do in a hospital is not a cheap test. It's not a mass-based test. It is not that you can take a sample and can tell by a patient per se. So I think it's not something which we can ask for every patient, and I can understand the limitation that in spite of being a problem, we can't do it in every person per se. But definitely a vitamin D can be done with every patient, because vitamin D deficiency can cause pains and aches. And that patient may improve a lot by just simply giving him a vitamin D supplement or a calcium supplement. I even say about disc problems. I've seen typically a lot of our patients come with disc problems or spine problems. We repeat with common thing. What happens? I refer that patient to an orthopedics doctor, or patient themselves go to a spine specialist. The spine specialist will do an MRI. He will talk later, he'll do MRI wherever, whichever organization. Most likely the MRI will show a lumbosacral spine problem or L5S1 or L4, L5, etc. And beyond that, nothing much. It would probably a typical report 9 out of 10 times would be mild compression of the nerves and a small disc problem, L5S1, etc. Now, what is the treatment which orthopedician colleagues offer? They would say exercise karo, weight come karo. They will put in a painkiller. They will put in some local physiotherapy, whatever. This is what they do. Now the question is, if a patient's vitamin D is done from the very beginning, and you don't even do MRI, you don't even need expensive test. And if you give patients vitamin D, then even if it can cause a spinal problem or it can cause a muscle pain here or something here, it can be taken care of. Now, I don't think so that any of the standard packages by any organization includes vitamin D as of now. Very few. There are some which are there, but I would say there are just few and far between. So just as an example, I'm saying that ultimately we need to do these kind of tests more, which are relevant to our usage, and you people can guide us more, and you can kind of put your point forward that this is what we'd like, and that's how the things are going. But some tests are superfluous, like I said. A syphilis test today is useless. And a lot of organizations are just continuing doing it, chal raha hai. Blood group, a simple thing. If nothing else, blood group will cost at least 100 rupees, 200 rupees. हर साल patient आके अपना वो positive blood group देख के क्या करेगा? So I think थोड़ा सा, if we use a little bit of rationality and within the framework of organizations, if we kind of do certain things, I think it will make a good difference. So I think it's a very commensal kind of thing. Of course, you people are the ones who are dealing with patients day in and day out in your organizations. But if you send patients for a checkup and all, probably a two-way communication could be a good idea to kind of give better benefit to the patients. Thank you.
Please unmute yourself.
Another issue which comes to my mind is the Cochrane evidence for health checkup, preventive health checkups, which seems to be a bit weak, that it benefits in the long term. So the investment versus returns, cost benefit analysis is very low. All the evidence which is meta-analysis Cochrane does. So what is your reaction to this?
Cochrane is a evidence-based network in which they kind of look at all the evidence and they kind of go along with that. But I think India is a unique country. India is not a country like any other Western country per se. I have worked in the West. I have worked in England for some time, and I have colleagues at other places also. It's a different kind of scenario per se. I must tell you, once I went to somebody's house in Canada, one of the relatives, and they just asked me because they knew I was a doctor. They said, "Oh, I'm bleeding per rectum. I'm having a bleeding per rectum." In India today, if you have a bleeding per rectum, tomorrow morning you will go and get an ultrasound done and get a colonoscopy by the evening, and day after tomorrow you'll have the result. So I said, "Okay, what's a colonoscopy?" They said, "Hamara colonoscopy ka appointment hai 1.5 महीने बाद का, 1.5 महीने बाद का in Canada." That's their system. और वो आराम से बैठा, डॉक्टर ने मेरे को कोई ट्यूब दे दिया है, कोई ये दे दिया, मैं 1.5 महीने बाद. And as I followed up later on, because it was a distant relative, that patient turned out to have a carcinoma. And then the patient was treated and all the patient did well. So I'm just saying every country is different. So Cochrane can be, like I said, one term which I used, which was a formula, which was a slogan, I think, which was during one of the WHO health assemblies: think global, act local. So I think I would take Cochrane into view. I agree with you that in certain cases, the cost and effectiveness is different, but the cost in a Western country is completely different as compared to the cost which we have in our country. And invasive procedure, I agree with you completely that those should be reserved for certain different kind of cases. But one major difference in India is that majority of our population is out of pocket. They pay out of pocket. Organizational support and all also is not very selective. And in Western countries, everything is either insurance based or NHS based and all. So I think the same principle does not apply equally well to all kind of systems. So I think we really need to kind of look at and tinker it from our perspective rather than theirs. And if a health checkup here, which is costing 5,000, 7,000, can prevent a ICU or a hospital or treatment on the OPD basis, then I think it really is something which probably our own local Cochrane example might be much more dividend as compared to the Western Cochrane. That's what I would say. But that's a nice point you raised,
but very apt comment that you made. In fact, that is the fundamental basis on which health and wellness centers have come up all across the country. And it's going to be a big movement. If you see the package in the health and wellness centers, exactly they almost replicate what Apollo Health Checkup has been trying to do. But it is focused on didactic, conversational, and high index algorithm, where baseline workers are able to sift out people who would require higher level of tests. That's the concept which the government of India is building. Because it's not a question of selective few getting it. As Dr. Sandeep Sharma was saying, WHO World Health Day was for having, health for all, having a fairer world. So the people who are, as you were mentioning, out of pocket, people who do not have money, they also get benefit. So that is the concept which government of India is making through PMJY, 1.5 lakh health and wellness center all across the country. The precise reason is the health checkup. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Raj.
Another valid point, sir, which Dr. Gupta has raised, sir, that is about adult vaccination. That has to be more emphasized in our organizations. And as for COVID vaccination now, as central government has made it mandatory for all their age appropriate, more than 45 years, 45 to 60 years, they have to get themselves vaccinated. So in the same way, different organizations now they are after their employees in this particular age group to get themselves vaccinated. So that is very important.
In fact, post-pandemic world,
Yeah.
there shall be public investment in adult vaccination. In
Yeah.
fact, that is going to happen. The revolution, where this was always in the pipeline but never seen the light of day, but it is going to come up.
Few years ago, I must say, I went to an organization and I talked on adult vaccination. I had a couple of topics in one of the conferences in an organization. And the organization chief actually came to me and told me, sir, please don't talk too much about adult vaccination because हमारे यहाँ होता नहीं है और अगर आप ज़्यादा बोलेंगे तो फिर हमें सबको करना पड़ेगा. So I think there were compulsions of different types. I can understand that there are budgets and all that kind of stuff. But I think adult vaccination is here to be promoted. And I think, let me give you my 2 pence worth of opinion, although everybody has their own opinion. I think what's going to happen is that this COVID vaccination also will last probably 6 months, 9 months. Antibodies, one doesn't know. We might have to do a test again. We see a couple of times. And after some time, it will get incorporated in the flu vaccine, which we do once a year. And I have a feeling that will become a vaccine which is given. Like swine flu got incorporated in the flu vaccine, like bird flu got incorporated. So I think COVID, although it's a very unique kind of virus, I think after a cycle or 2 or 3 cycles of vaccinations, will also become a part of annual vaccination. And I think we'll continue taking it over a period of time, over life.
And I liked your mention of anti-HCV, which was always neglected. There's no treatment. Now they have low-cost curative treatment available. So it's worthwhile. And the huge population is having hepatitis C virus.
Well, if you remember, Dr. Rajiv, when once someone had a hepatitis C, we used to have a sympathy for that patient.
Yes.
We used to say, oh, we are so sorry to note that you got hepatitis C. You will remain like this for life and it will continue, etc.
Yes.
This is what we used to think at one time. Today we congratulate. We say, okay, fine, you got hepatitis C, congratulations. Take this medicine, 3 months of medication and complete eradication. Enjoy life. So I think it's such a fantastic change which has happened over a period of time regarding hepatitis C.
Very true.
Sir, before we take the other panelists, may I request all the panelists to unmute themselves, whomsoever wants to interact with Dr. Rakesh Gupta. In the meantime, we'll take some Q&A questions which are there in the Q&A box. One question is from Dr. Ghanshyam Dulera. He is asking for suggest any hormonal tests in bodybuilders who take decadurabolin, creatine, and testosterone injections. He is a senior occupational health officer from Shidner Electric, Mahape.
I'll be honest with you, decadurabolin has a role. I would give it for a very emaciated patient, a very old patient whose muscle is very weak and very poor. And I would give for a certain duration of time anabolic steroids. It may help to some extent. But I think it's not a mass-based test, a mass-based injection which I would offer to all my patients. Occupational or non-occupational, anabolic steroids have their own side effects. And I think I will give only to extreme cases. It's not very popular also nowadays. So I don't see any reason that I would change my practice, at least in common practice.
Okay. Then there are some questions from Dr. Divyang Shah from Mumbai, sir. He is asking what should be the strategy for frequency of preventive health checkup based on age hazard exposure?
I think the standard policy which we have been following now is till now that above the age of 40, I think one should take it every year, the health checkups. I definitely recommend, like I said, for ladies, mammography should be done once in 2 years, and pap smear should be done every year. So it depends whether you want to do a package every year or not. But if you have a strong family history of something specific, then in that case, I think you can even start earlier. But I think doing unnecessary test in a young patient doesn't make sense. Quite a few of our patients, they just because they have resources, they might come to the hospital and say, "कि मेरा सबसे अच्छा वाला package कर." So, in a 20-year-old doing a PSA level or looking at prostate is useless. That's a waste of time and energy and money, basically. So I think the best way to go forward is to meet your clinicians from time to time and let them decide for you what is best for you, how often you should have it. I think as a standard way, I would say above the age of 40, one should undergo a checkup every year. That's what I would say. And doing more than that, doing every 6 months and all doesn't make difference. It doesn't make any sense. You can do specific test every 6 months or 3 months if you're a diabetic or a hypertensive or something. But generally speaking, a package like a preventive health checkup package once a year is good enough above the age of 40 in most of the patients.
In addition to, he's asking should vitamin B12 and vitamin D3, they should be a integral part of the package, and as you have already explained.
I'll be honest with you. Vitamin D and vitamin B12, though, both are not cheap tests. Yeah. Unfortunately, they are reasonably expensive. So although private labs try to do it at a cheaper rate, but then still it's expensive. It can't be incorporated in every patient. Also, in my experience, I've seen that vitamin D and vitamin B12, they almost go hand in hand. The food items which are rich in one are rich in the other also. And generally, vegetarian diet lacks in vitamin B12 and D3 both. So somehow, I feel that if you do one, it's almost you can extrapolate to another and think the other also do it. So if a company says that, should I incorporate these tests? I would say yes. If it is within your budget, please do that. If a company says, doctor, I want to choose one of the two, then I would say vitamin D is a better test to do, much better. And I think let me put it this way. If you do a vitamin D test, your vitamin D is low, then you would give a vitamin D supplement, but you will give a calcium supplement also to the patient because his calcium is also low, isn't it? So no point giving only vitamin D and no calcium. Now, if you give a calcium, say something like a Shell Cal, for example, you can give us something like a Shell Cal XT, which has a vitamin B12 along with that. The cost is almost the same. So what I would do in such a patient is give a calcium with vitamin B12, give a vitamin D supplement. And then when the next test is done, say after 3 months or whenever I'm going to review that patient again, then I might ask them to do a vitamin B12 separately. If you can do it together, yes, it should be incorporated, not preferably vitamin D more important than vitamin B12. And if not, then even I would go on to say that if I have a diabetic patient and comes to me in a routine case, I would probably start a mild dose of vitamin D, vitamin B12 supplementation. And maybe in the next visit, tell the patient to come back with tests. You have got nothing to lose. If 90% of the population does have these deficiencies, then there is no harm in starting it for a short term. You can't give a prick to the patient again and again. So when the patient comes back after 6 weeks or 3 months, whenever, then in that case, you can get those tests.
So he's also asking any tips or suggestions from any other panelists also, what are the tips and suggestions to make our employers convinced about the preventive health checkup, that they are mandated?
I think one thing which we have noticed over last 1 year is that suddenly everybody is more concerned about their health. For whatever reason, COVID has created such a noise that looks like everybody has the ear to the ground. कौन सा वैक्सीन है, क्या प्रॉब्लम है, सीआरपी का क्या मतलब होता है, ये टाइटर क्या होता है, कोविड के लिए everybody is sensitive, but I think it should be at different workplaces. This point should be emphasized. That I tell all my patients, I must tell you, I tell all my patients that काढ़ा लेने से या विटामिन सी या ये लेने से तुम्हारा कोविड नहीं बचेगा, but if you are hypertensive, तुम्हारा हाइपरटेंशन कंट्रोल होना चाहिए, अगर तुम्हारा शुगर है, तुम्हारा शुगर कंट्रोल होना चाहिए, तुम्हारा कोलेस्ट्रॉल है, कोलेस्ट्रॉल कंट्रोल होने से. This will give you much better preventive strategy or much better immunity as compared to taking all these, kind of colloquial kind of things really as well. So I think that is what I emphasize to all my patients. So maybe at your workplaces, you can also kind of have this kind of emphasis that preventive health checkup picks up things at an early stage. And maybe if we fix that, the immunity will improve. Immunity is a word which probably has been used so much over the last 1 year. And so many companies have made a killing by selling things on immunity basis, etc. So I think the word is immunity. And if you can control all these parameters, your immunity would be much better, which will help you in fighting
or preventing the conditions which are kind of sweeping the place. Maybe that's a way to kind of get about involving more and more people for health checkups and kind of whetting their appetite for it.
Then, sir, there's one question from Dr. Madhuri. She is asking, can we consider some chemical hazard specific packages on preventive toxicology as per the industry?
You know, that is again a package. I mean, obviously hospitals have all kind of tests available to them. I don't know specifically which chemicals you might be talking about, because different industries might have different chemicals. But sometimes we do have patients in our hospital who have come with poisonings or unknown poisonings, and they may have consumed something, alphos, or they might have. So we do have a toxicology screening. So in which case we do a urine test of toxicology, in which we kind of screen through various 20 chemicals or 40, 50, whatever. And that also includes marijuana and heroin. We are looking more at those narcotics, etc. But a fair amount of chemicals also are there, organophosphorus, organochlorine, etc. So I think every industry is different. I don't think so in a general way the screening would be of much use. But even pneumoconiosis and silicosis and all those lung-based conditions which we have known all our life in PSM days that they can cause because of different organizations are not seen so much in practice per se. Maybe in your own areas, whichever organization, whether you have a cotton wool kind of industry or you have might be more industry specific. So I think a general toxicology screening is not really the recommendation. But if someone specifically asks for it, or someone says that our industry is based on these chemicals and we would appreciate if you can incorporate these tests, it can be done.
Yes. Then there is
Thank
one
you.
Question. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, Dr. Damodaran.
See, your talk has been excellent, absolutely practical. It was fantastic. But when you talk about this ultrasonography, fatty liver has become a fashion now. Bone densitometry has become a problem. And apnea is another racket. I mean, these three things, I feel they are rackets. What do you feel about it? Because earlier, every report was there, but nobody was bothered about fatty liver. Now, everybody is bothered about fatty liver.
I agree with you, and I would talk in a very simplistic way. If you say you get an ultrasound done and patient comes to me with ultrasound fatty liver, and he says, "Doctor, I've got fatty liver. Now what?" I'm going to sit down with him and I'm going to ask him, "Okay, fine. Do you drink? Is your cholesterol normal? Are you obese or are you a diabetic?" By and large, a non-alcoholic steatohepatitis or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease would probably involve one of these components, by and large. If these three components are abnormal, then I'll impress upon the patient to kind of take care of these components, the weight, cholesterol, sugar issues, rather than anything. Of course, if it's alcohol, it's obvious. It's fatty liver is because of alcohol, and you can impress upon that. I would agree with one point. You may call it a racket, because if this patient goes to a gastroenterologist, then gastroenterologist is looking at it from a different perspective. He will say, in my experience, I've seen so many other patients. He will say 1 out of 100 can turn out to be malignancy also. We have some medicines to offer. He might give a UDCA or something. So what he'll do is probably he'll do a fibroscan. He might do an endoscopy and he'll say, "Okay, I'm looking at the varices or something, or I am doing a colonoscopy because I've." So maybe the racket part comes in when over investigation happens. But I think the primary clinicians are the one who can control such a situation. And in a health checkup program, for example, in a hospital, like I said, the clinician sees the patient twice. And then depending on that, so I am not going to refer this patient to gastroenterologist ever. I've never referred a patient of fatty liver to a. If a patient seeks and goes to the gastroenterologist, that's his choice. Sleep apnea. I agree that it might be a racket because you might feel that every second person has a sleep apnea. But the truth is it's a recognized entity. And if suppose sleep apnea is positive, what is the treatment? The first treatment is lifestyle modification. Lose your weight, start walking regularly, improve your stamina. So I think if we can diagnose a sleep apnea without doing the test, maybe clinically only, we can half the time you can even, it's very obvious to see a Pickwickian syndrome patient or having a double chin or a sleep apnea. Then in that case, probably I'll first 3 months go for health check for lifestyle modification. Start walking, start losing weight, start. So he will identify. What I'll tell my patient is, I think you got obstructive sleep apnea. I would give you 3 months to walk, lose weight, etc. Kindly go and study Google and study about this sleep apnea. I can tell you more than us, he'll be scared of Google.
When Google starts telling them about this can happen in sleep apnea and heart attacks can happen and all, the patient himself will probably get scared and he may become motivated to kind of lose weight, etc. So these kind of things, and bone densitometry, I think no longer is a very popular one. I mentioned it, but in my practice, I don't use more bone density at all. So considering all this, probably vitamin D that way remains a easy test to do and pick up things rather than a bone densitometry. So I agree with you. Partly it's become a racket because of supply demand and some doctors wanting to kind of trying to go one further. But I think when you're talking about a primary health checkup, when you're talking about a clinical health checkup, when you're talking about occupational health checkup, then I don't think so we need to go any further than initially offering lifestyle modification only, rather than any specific invasive tests.
That's right, sir. So then this was really a great discussion, sir, and a lot of new things have come up, and a lot of clarification has been made by you. There's one more question from Dr. Anant Krishnan. Dr. Anant, you want to ask yourself, or should I read out? He's asking, sir, your suggestion on checking of insulin levels in diabetic patients.
I don't think the checking of insulin level is of much use by and large. After all, what will insulin level tell you? A diabetic patient, especially type 2 diabetes, when we talk about diabetes, we're generally talking about type 2 diabetes only, because 95% of patients are type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes, of course, is a different ball game. And in that case, insulin levels may help us to some extent. But if you're a type 2 diabetes, primarily it's a combination of insulin deficiency and insulin resistance. So in that case, seeing a serum insulin level which will be high or low does not change my treatment. My first choice for a diabetic patient anyway is insulin sensitizer, like metformin or pioglitazone or whatever I'd like to give. In PCOD patients, especially in young girls, in those cases, probably doing an insulin resistance levels or doing insulin makes sense. Or probably in obese patients, and especially young obese patients, in which they are not even diabetic. In those cases, doing insulin levels may help us in identifying at very early stages insulin resistance. So according to me, if a patient is diabetic, I don't like to do insulin levels. It doesn't help me in changing my practice, and it doesn't help me in kind of treating. Any test which does not help me in treating differently or giving me insight into a patient in a different way, I don't think so it's of any use. So I don't do it in a routine.
Okay, sir.
And it's not recommended also.
Dr. Divyang, you want to ask something?
Yes, just to take the views from the other panelists and senior members on my written question, how to convince the employer to make the annual health checkup mandatory, compulsory for the staff. Because, sir, you have explained very well, but when we go to the management, it's difficult to convince the cost-benefit analysis, the sickness, absenteeism, and presenteeism. I'm struggling a lot of making it a part of their annual performance. I just want to know about the experiences and suggestions from other seniors in this today's webinar, like Dr. Jain, Dr. Tyagaraja, Dr. Ananta, Dr. Lele, Dr. Sriniket, and all these. If you can throw some light on that.
Dr. Rajiv, sir, would you like to?
I couldn't hear Dr. Divyang Shah completely.
So what he's asking, how you will convince your management for this executive health checkup or the annual health checkup for the staff and the employees?
Well, what I'm saying from the beginning, risk assessment is the primary focus. And the risk assessment, definitely Dr. Rakesh Gupta also made that point. The physician or the medical professional, along with paramedical personnel and the immediate supervising person or officer can help in accurate risk assessment. And on a sample of an organization's employees, if one is able to show that you have detected individuals in an early stage and with intervention over a period of 1 year, the disease has not progressed or has regressed. This journey, it would take at the most 2 years. Now, if evidence is presented to the management that this has happened with little or no investment from the organization, within the organization, and that convert that into monetary terms and present that to the management, it does make an impressive case for the management to get involved. Now, if the management at middle level gets involved, next challenge is involving the top management in the same effort. If there are few individuals in the middle management, they definitely, what I've seen over the years, they take it up as a personal agenda with the top management. And what happens? The agreement or the will of the top management, once it is available, then it becomes sustainable. Because it's not a question. I'm a votary of a concept where it has to be part of the organization culture. Health checkup, if it is not part of organizational culture, it is self-defeating process. Because unless you do it over 20, 30 years, and also please remember, include post-retired individuals, people who are no longer working. In fact, the major development in the Western world has come through assessment of people who are no longer working in the organization. If they are taken care of, the retention rates improve, the outcome and the benefit comes better, and you are able to get better information to assess the risk in a realistic term. So that, I think, is the model that I would say should be followed in organized sector, that is.
We have to give a cost benefit analysis ratio also to the management.
Unique to the organization.
Yeah,
It's not be theoretical.
Yeah, because
Because
they understand in this language much better.
Yes.
And,
Because what if you start presenting, this was done in US, or as Dr. Rakesh was saying, we do not have any data for India. So we have to create data for our organization and real individuals in real environment.
So last question from Dr. Tyagaraja, our senior member from Bangalore. Sir. Yes, sir.
Dear sir, it is a most wonderful lecture you have given. Actually, I am practicing since 1977. One of the three, this one you have pointed out, that is a person who is a diabetic and erectile dysfunction. If you ask this question, you will become a lifelong your patient. This is very, very true, sir. Most of the cases, most of the people, especially diabetes, if they are type 2 diabetes people who takes more than 2 to 3 tablets, will definitely go for erectile dysfunction. And second thing you have pointed out that this diabetes can be reversed if the person goes for 800 units of calories. Really true. If a person minimizes his intake of the food and increases his exercise, it is very true. And then the third one, which you have said, is adult vaccination, especially hepatitis C, hepatitis 1 and hepatitis 2. And this COVID vaccination is really great, sir. Very thank you for your wonderful lecture. It is very practicable. Since we have learned a lot, this is our eye-opening. Really, even if you practice some of the points, what you have told, really, it's a very great. Some of the points we have to remember. And second thing is, I just wanted to tell you this, especially in our Bharat Electronics Limited, most of the directors are from Army, Air Force and all, they are from services. And we had a lot of patients at the age of 40. We used to see sudden heart attack, and they used to say die in the plant. So then our management, who are all directors and the CMD, they introduced this health checkup for the age of after the 40. And really it has given a really worth. And also they introduced in the canteen, instead of rice, they introduced chapati. And it has really given such a wonderful results, and drastically the patient who used to die in the plant has come down to a remarkable extent. Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Tyagaraja, sir. So I think we have spent a lot of good time with Dr. Rakesh Gupta, sir. And as Dr. Divyang has rightly said, that we have to convince our management. And sir, if you see the management, top management of any company, they have reached that position, and the 2, 3, 4 years of their directorship or chairmanship if you think that they want to make the best of that time, and in that particular case, in their particular case of their tenure, they want to do their best, and for doing their best, they want to remain healthy. So they are much more aware than all of us regarding the health. They are more learned. They are more focused on health. They might be doing a lot of things which we are not doing. So maybe in the form of diet or some exercise, or they are much more aware about the preventive health rather than we all. So if we target the right thing to the management, and they are quite receptive of this. So it is all our efforts, how we put it forward to the management, and management will definitely never refuse to that. And definitely this angle of cost benefit, it should be there, because management industries, they are in business, and they understand the language of in financial terms more much, but still, as a human being, all directors, chairmen, they understand the importance of preventive health, and because they want to remain agile, they want to remain active, and they want to do a lot of things during their tenure. So we can always motivate them to get it implemented for all our workers. So it was a great discussion, Dr. Rakesh Gupta sir, and we'll keep on disturbing you on different topics, and we would like to learn more about COVID also. We think that COVID will definitely calm down after this second wave, by if we take all necessary precautions in our industries, in our daily life, and with the proper vaccination. I hope things will go well, and soon we'll have some physical meeting also, sir. So this is the 47th meeting of this DigiConnect webinar, and I thank you very much for sparing your valuable time, and I thank all the participants for sparing their time for this
Sir,
discussion.
thank you so much for providing us the opportunity, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Dr.
Sir, Amit Goyal this
sorry,
side, sir.
sorry, Amit. So thank you very much, and I thank Apollo Hospital also
Thanks.
to provide this opportunity to bring you, sir, Dr. Rakesh Gupta sir, and this is actually in continuation of our deliberations on the building a fairer, healthy work theme of the World Health Day. So thank you very much, and we'll keep in touch, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. All the best to you.
Thank you and good night. Good night all.
Thank you, Amit.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Thank you.